The peace of Christ be with you. This is the Midweek Reflection for Third Reformed Church of Grand Rapids on Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. As we settle into this second week of social distancing, and here in Michigan with a new executive order that increases the level of isolation being asked of us, these midweek reflections will remain an opportunity to explore together this experience that we're going through. Even though we haven't been able to gather in person, I've been really grateful for the opportunity to stay connected in some new ways through comments here on the YouTube channel, through social media, email, text, phone calls. I've been able to hear from quite a few of you of how you're doing in the midst of this, which has been wonderful because we're all going through this for the first time. And so the more that we can share best practices, the more we can kind of open up honestly with each other with how we're doing mentally, emotionally, spiritually in this, the better off we're going to be. As I was taking some time to journal yesterday, just get centered at the start of my own day, I found myself thinking about the phrase that Jesus uses in John's Gospel. It's in chapter 13. Where he says that the world is going to recognize those of you who are trying to follow after me by your love. That it's the self-sacrificing, compassionate, humble love of those of us who are trying to model our lives after Jesus that'll make us known in the world. And I've got to say that over these past few weeks, there have been so many people who are making themselves known. It's been a beautiful thing to see. And it got me reflecting on how that love of Christ that asks some sacrifice of us, that requires us to move outside of ourselves, is really at the core of what it means to live a life of faith. When we give ourselves to that, we are saying that we don't make decisions purely through our own selfish desires or ambitions or needs, but that everything in our life gets run through this filter of a love for God and a love for others. And that kind of love necessarily requires some sacrifice. And so in many ways, care of community, right, is woven into the DNA of what it means to be people of faith. Even in the New Testament language about what it means to be followers of Jesus, we get imagery like being members of a body or individual living stones that together make a living sanctuary. Right? It reminds us continually that we are all just one part of a much bigger whole. We don't simply belong to ourselves. And so it makes me wonder if in some ways communities of faith have a head start on the rest of the world in this COVID-19 experience. When we hear government officials and media talking about sacrifice that is required for the common good, they're speaking our language. This is the kind of work that we are continually training ourselves in and encouraging one another towards. And so it doesn't surprise me when I see people of faith respond in really powerful ways, even when it means making some sacrifices. And those sacrifices look really different for different people at this point in time. It's easy for us to recognize the sacrifices of our healthcare workers and first responders, the people who are cleaning surgical wards and aiding in those surgeries or performing them. The people who keep punching in day after day and treating those who are ill, putting themselves and their loved ones directly in harm's way. That's a sacrifice that's easy for us to recognize. Other people are experiencing sacrifice in the loss of income or the ability to work, experiencing the sacrifice of stability as they're not entirely sure how they're going to make ends meet until our economy is given free rein again. Other people are on the flip side of that and experiencing deep pain as employers themselves and having to make life-altering decisions, trying desperately to figure out how they can keep hours and income and insurance in place for the people who work for them. Others of us are experiencing sacrifice in the loss of relationship, the inability to connect in person, to hug, right? To have those things that really make us human and remain central parts of our experience of community life. The sacrifices come in a multitude of forms. And if you've been around Third Church for a while, you will have heard one of my favorite mantras many, many times over, which is that all change, even good and necessary change, produces loss, and that all loss deserves to be lamented. And so even while there are these experiences of love and compassion that inspire me, that is not to gloss over the very real difficulties that this crisis is producing for our world, for our country, for our congregation, for ourselves. And so this week, I'm wondering, what kind of sacrifices do you find yourself being asked to make? And what kind of loss is that producing? Because it's an essential part of maintaining our spiritual and emotional and mental health in this experience, to be able to name those losses, to be able to acknowledge the sacrifices that are being made, and to be able to lament those together, which is to say they may be good and necessary steps that we have to take. It can be a central part of what it means to be a follower in the way of Jesus and have care of the common good at the forefront of our minds, but it still hurts. It's still challenging. It still creates an emotional weight that is hard to bear. So if you would risk it, I would encourage you in the comment section below this video this week to name some of the sacrifices that you and the people you love are making, to name the losses that you're experiencing in the midst of this, and to maybe even offer up a lament around that, which follows in the biblical footprint, right? A third of our psalms are psalms of lament, which essentially say, God, you are God. I'm coming to you in the midst of an experience that is not the way I wish it would be. I'm experiencing loss that hurts. I'm not entirely sure where you're at in the midst of that, but I trust that you remain good, and I will continue to walk in the ways that you have set out in front of me, which is the way of love. So engage in some of those conversations in the comment thread if you would. If you feel more comfortable emailing me directly, you can find my contact on thirdreformedchurchgr.org. And let's continue to meet each other, both in the challenges and the beautiful opportunities that this experience has provided for us. So until the next time we are together, the peace of Christ be with you.